the stimulus I tend to use most of all, mainly because this was the stimulus John taught us how to use, is a picture of some kind. So in a typical session, I will hand out copies of the same picture to everyone, and really simply ask people to respond to that picture, to say what they can see in the picture, what they feel about the picture, any thoughts that the picture might prompt in them. And anything that is said is allowed. There's nothing disallowed. Everything has its place. And either I will sit with a notebook and write down what people say, or I will use a flip chart and write it down there. That's often the flip charts, if you can use that, is quite a good way of doing it, because people can see what they're saying going up onto the paper as they're speaking it, and it becomes real, so to speak. I'll just try and describe this first picture. It was a painting of woodland. There were trees, there was a shaft of sunlight coming down through the trees into a clearing in the woodland, and that was the stimulus. And this is the poem that came out of it. And it was created by Irene, Audrey, Florence, Cyril, Ruby, Stella and Ella. And it's called A Valley It Is. A beautiful place. It's spring. There's a lot of fern. There's mist in the background. It makes a mystery. Because of the reflection, the sun gives a reflection sometimes. You see falling trees in the background, very faint, fading. It would be strange to you. You'd have to get your feeling to it. You would feel very welcome. You'd have to build a story around the whole thing, have it as a background, put people in it. I think there are horses involved. You could have a horse coming round the corner. It could be a shadow. It looks as if there's something missing. You've got to find it. And it was a photograph of the sea. It was a beach, an empty beach, with a wide expanse of sea, again with sunlight on it. There were clouds in the sky. There were two rocks out at sea in the distance, and just very small and faint two figures standing on the shoreline. And this is the poem that came from that, and it was made by Ruth, Joan, Catherine, Stella, Pat and Doris, Val and Sylvia. It's called It Makes You Feel Freedom. The sound of the waves, the sound of gulls, children laughing when they first go down, sand, the kind you can't make sandcastles in, dark hills in the background, lovely clouds, white fluffy clouds like cotton wool. There's too much cloud and not enough sea. The sea's very calm. It's late in the day. The blue is the good weather coming in. It's got one big animal and one very small one. They're rocks. I see a boat. Two people paddling in the water, putting their feet in the water, wading in the water. And I was up to my knees. It doesn't look like they've got Wellingtons on. So the sea can't be that cold. The people are very intent on something. There's an inlet and they're trying to walk out to it. Their faces became squashed when the waters first came down. There doesn't seem to be anyone else on the sand. It didn't happen. When it did exist, it was in the soil. It's like swimming the channel. You can do what you like. It makes you feel freedom. God's not far off. I wish I was there.
One of the absolute joys of this sort of work is you just never ever know what's going to come out of it. Things change every week. We work in lots of different settings. These poems came from care homes, but we've worked in daycare settings in a psychiatric unit. And we tend to have to adapt to fit different situations, to adapt to fit different people we work with. But it's always an absolute joy. And this is by Kathleen, Amy, Joan, Ruby, Joyce, Sheila, Kathleen, Maria, and Paddy. It's called Colours. I used to pick peas. I've got some green shoes and I'd like a dress that's green. Bowling green, cricket I used to like to watch. Green fir trees, banks of green in fields. 10 green bottles hanging on the wall. Cat's eyes are green. Traffic lights are green. Go. Anything that's gone rotten. Daffodils up in the Lake District, Wordsworth. Lemon flowers, narcissus. You couldn't put him in a lemon suit and call him Jack. You could call him Jack if he was all in blue. Lemon sherbet. We've got some little yellow flowers. The 3 commonest colours, red, white and blue, the Union Jack. I used to wear red when I was young. Tomatoes are red, strawberries, plums, blood red. I used to make strawberry jam. Pillar boxes, red boxes, the post office. My best hat, that was long ago. The sky, Father Christmas. White shirts at school. Snow is white before anyone's trodden on it. A white veil, white sheets. I thought you'd ask if I've got white knickers on. Blue Persian cat, RAF blue, sky, blue blouse, blue skirt. Pale blue and dark blue. Blue eyes, bloomers. Have you got blue knickers on? And the reason why I like that so much, apart from the fact I think it's a very good poem, is actually because I do just remember what a lot of fun we had doing it, and actually how much we laughed about it. And as David said, one of the benefits of doing the group poems is that people start getting on together and they share ideas and they argue and they have a joke with each other. I did like poetry. It's gone out of fashion. I did love it always. We were encouraged to learn it off by heart. Someone came knocking at my wee small door. I only came into the care home last Sunday afternoon. I'm a Catholic. It all started when we had those Lent talks. In the night I woke and I didn't know where I was. It was terrifying. I get very confused, you see. I get very confused, but luckily I've remembered some of my poetry. Here's another one. Christ of his gentleness, thirsty and hungry, he heard the bitterns call. That's actually about Jesus Christ when he was in the wilderness. Poetry keeps you going, instead of sitting in a lump all the time.
The thing that I wanted to talk about, which is slightly different from the others' approach, is because came out of my fear of standing up in front of lots of people and talking to them. So this is, it was quite difficult for me. I think the other poets are used to being performers and performing their own work, and I wasn't. I was much more of a poet that wrote quietly to myself. So being part of the project was quite a brave step for me. And the one-to-one work that I did was quite straightforward, and I loved it and I could do. But the classic group poem that's described, I found quite a difficult thing to do. I don't think my voice is very strong. I'm not a natural performer. So I ended up sneakily doing, I could see that there was a lot of value in the group work, that people talking, making connections, making friendships with each other when they've been quite often sitting alone and not talking to each other in a care home. And that was very valuable. They got to know each other and found that they had things in common. But I did find it difficult, so I ended up sneaking round the thing so that I could still do group poems but not be out in front in a kind of classic teacher sort of position or role. So what I did, the first thing I did is I used music. I played Lark Ascending. I don't know if anyone knows that, by Vaughan Williams, which is a beautiful, moving piece of music, and we listened to it. I had a picture of a lark as well, and then there's some beautiful poems about larks, and I can't remember any of them, but and I read those, and so the group poem came out of listening to music and came out of that, and was also about being properly in the moment, so that even with some people with later stages of dementia who might find the poem, doing a group poem process quite confusing, with a tea tasting or something, everybody was always involved and understood what was happening the whole time. Another thing I did, and I brought it with me, is it sounds a bit odd, but I had some little kites from China, and on one sunny, slightly blustery day I took the kites, we all sat outside and had cups of tea, and they flew the kites and tied them onto Zimmer frames and wheelchairs, and I read some poems about kite flying. There's one by Robert Louis Stevenson that was very good. And so out of the experience came the words and the responses. And this is a poem that I'm going to read from that, Kite Flying. And it's by Nancy, Monica, Doris, Bert, Jo and Ernie. And this session went on for ages. We just sat out there in the sun for a long time, and that was lovely. And it's called Come Fly a Kite With Me. You don't see children with kites now. In the country these days, you can't fly a kite because of the pylons. There's no wind, we're in a hollow. We used to go up a big hill and run down it, holding the kite up in the air, full stretch. You twist them round and round to make them fly, round and round. Hold it in your fingers and it'll go higher. It's going higher and higher. I'm going with it. I shall be in the sky in a minute. And this one went down with the men quite well, actually. It's called Ale. Shropshire lad, the fizzier the better. Quite nice, rich, quite bitter. Hereford pale ale, if you like it pale, it's all right. My folks ran a pub, pulled it down. What's the name of that bloody pub? I drank a lot, yes. Not a lot, but often. Dorothy Goodbody's wholesome stout. I don't like stout. I was born in Burton-on-Trent. I could smell the malt. Although it's stout, it's not much like Guinness. Mr. G's not got anything to worry about. My old grandmother lived till 92. She drank a bottle of Mackerson every day of her life. Butty Bark. Is it milk stout? Oh aye, that one's a live beer. It's my favourite. It's coming, boy, it's coming. Get it down, you. It was sold in the Swan, the Lion, all about our way. Dorothy Goodbody's Golden Ale. Strong, I like this one, a strong favourite. I used to have the finest stout dinners, but I couldn't keep up with some of them, but I did my best. 10 pints, 11 pints. The next day I had an appetite like a horse. I was 20, 21 I suppose then. I did it because I wasn't wise. Last one, 4:30, chucking out times early.